hear me, do you?
Mic's on.
Is my mic on?
Always mic
Yeah, my mic's on.
on. Like that.
We heard squat. So let's put this down and
Here's mine.
go to control room and you're gonna bring us up and you're gonna play around. I just did all that.
You're doing good.
No, it's not for kids. Great to stream.
It's not a kids show.
No, good. They'll post that poster.
We have one at our house. It's posted on the refrigerator door.
It says live now, so we push that. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun,
Change the
dun,
date
dun,
before
dun.
you start recording.
What's that?
Change the date before you start recording. Can you?
See, that's supposed to allow me to push in there,
It's not gonna let you do that.
and then it's not allowing me to do that.
Oh, maybe we're already live.
But I've done it during the middle of the show.
I don't know. Maybe she can start. Right.
Well, we got, well, the chat is the chat. The chat room's coming up. I'm gonna go with the live chat, and it's notifying 9 people, so we are up, and once we see
Is Jack on there yet? Or not? No. Let's see.
not as of yet, but 9 people, yeah, 9 people have been notified. Why did they not allow me to do that? Anyway, we're losing our subscribers. We're up to 234. Well, at least Bob's there. Quack. Okay, I guess we can get started since Bob is there.
Got the same with Bob's in there?
Yeah.
Oh, greedy.
The plural infidel squirrels. That be us. Anyway, we're a little slow starting here, Bob, so I gotta have my coffee. I only had one pot today, so I'm lagging behind. This weekend was first weekend of regular spring gobbler here in Pennsylvania. And Kendall is hi y'all. Hi Emmy. Nice to see you again. Anywho's it was up in the mountains for the weekend, and I declared our pump for officially dead. I took my field strength meter for checking electricity. You don't have to touch it, just get close to it and it reads it through the insulation, makes it a lot safer to use. And we got electricity all the way to the switch. We got all the way to the splice to go down into the pump, but the pump don't work. So that means we got to pull the pump. But that's going to go on a couple-week furlough because we have a door that's got to be replaced because it's made with tin with a styrofoam wood frame, and styrofoam filling, and it's only like 3/4 of an inch thick.
Yeah. Those,
And so it's a real piece of shit door. So these the sheeting on the outside was starting to peel. Well, somebody gets to seeing that, they can just go up there and peel that off and punch through the other side. So anyway, this week Bones and I will be going over to Home Depot and getting the stuff to make the door, and fix that door, and then we'll work on the pump, and then we'll work on the second door, since make it match.
Yeah, my pump replaced last year.
Yeah, that. So. But fortunately, my son and my grandson's starting to step up and put a few dollars into the camp instead of me having to do it now. And he's working, so. But I got an interesting story to tell you folks. Friday morning, Cigar Friendly we opened up for the first time since the governor closed down the state. And I went in there to get some cigars for the guys to take up so we can take them up to camp. And when I got there, of course, only 2 people allowed in there, and you must wear masks. So I went in and I talked to the girl who was letting us in, and I says, hey, just 2.5 months ago, if I had showed up here with a mask, you had a SWAT team down on my back in a heartbeat. And she started giggling. And so I went in, and being that I don't shop for cigars very often, they have a cigar room, but I wasn't allowed to go in there because I didn't want people to go in and handle the cigars. Okay, so you had to tell the girl what you wanted. Well, I didn't know from that what they had. I says, I want 2, not cheap cigars, but not real expensive, somewhere in the middle that are really mild. And so she went in and brought a bunch out, and she did a good job, leastwise the one that I did smoke over the weekend. Man, was that a good smoke and lasted a long time. But when I went to check out, they asked me my birth date. So I go 7/27/1948. That makes me 21. So anyway, I get up to camp after getting cigars. I'm lighting up one of the little ones while I'm waiting a menudo, while I'm waiting for Randall to show up, and I open up the box of matches as it gave me. And damn it, I'll have Mr. T sort of hold these up to you, to camera there, but they're carrying desegregation just a little bit too far in this country. Black matchsticks with white heads on it, of all things. That way I'll let you show them, and that way I can see if they're getting it. Yeah, there's the delay. Yeah, there you go. There you go, folks. Look at that. Black matchsticks with white heads on them. Talk about desegregation. Thank you, Mr. Ty. We'll say hello to the bludgeoner. I'll be seeing him on Tuesday. But,
so he is working now?
oh yeah, he's been working. He was only off 1 or 2 days. And then they got called back to work.
That's good.
Yeah, because his job was, they made parts for making parts to make medical supplies with. Just what I don't know, but that could be anything from masks to syringes to catheter tubing to enema bottles.
Animal bottles.
So didn't see no turkeys. Of course, I really didn't get out. I got up and I saw it was foggy, And I pride my guns too much to carry out there to go after a elusive bird that maybe you will see and you won't see. So I stayed in camp and got much needed sleep. For the first time in months when I've been up there, I was able to sleep in that bed, and I mean sleep. Not wake up with hip hurting, back hurting, or whatever, but sleep. So, anyhow, I mean, it's important now that we get back to normal and burn out this virus. You're right, Emmy, and I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if I pulled up the stories, but more and more and more evidence is coming out that this virus was or did escape from the Wahoo laboratory. Wuhan, Luke. Anyway, it escaped from their facility. Now, you can blame part of this problem on Obama, because the Obama administration pushed through Congress, the Democratic-controlled Congress, a $3.7 million grant to that facility while he was El Presidente. Now, I forgot what, now you made me lose my tracks, right? Right?
Close to the $3.7 million.
Yeah.
Funded.
Well, $3 million of it got distributed to him before Trump got into office. Okay, $700,000 was still left to be contributed. Well, Trump was honoring the law that was preceded him, as he is supposed to do. But it turns out also that Trump's medical advisor was in on the pressure, or not pressure, but in on the securing the grant for the Southeast. Yeah, that guy. Bushy. Bunchy? Flossie? Anyway, yeah. Yeah. The series, I would say hello to the Bunger on Tuesday, yes. Okay. And let's see, did something was about the bear, did I? That poor bear still frustrates you, yeah? No, that wasn't the bear that was frustrating, it was a fox this time. Yeah. So, anyhow, we have
He
looked
took
at...
out, let's see, 11 guinea hens of ours. And now he paid the price for his stupidity to try to do a daylight attack.
So he was a serial guinea hen killer, huh?
Yeah, but he tried for one of the chickens and he got away, but came back to the scene of the crime and
Lying in wait.
I haven't seen him since I haven't seen him since.
You're lying in
When I
wait.
hit him, he flinched.
You know, it's against the law to use chickens as bait, you know.
Really? Well, we got to run out of guinea hens.
Yeah. We had to do something good, yeah, well.
He started with 16 and he got to 2, and then he lost at least one to a raccoon.
Well, shall we get into the meat and potatoes of this?
Jack on your interview.
I have not seen him check in yet.
Well, since you mentioned the $3.7 million and Dr. Fauci, I just did that article.
Well, you got an article.
Yeah. Well, you gave it to me.
Oh, I did?
Anyway, according to Giuliani, Fauci gave $3.7 million to Wuhan Laboratory. Now, Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, who needs to be dry, a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force bulletin marked the coronavirus COVID-19 update briefing Monday, April 6th. And it shows a picture of him right here doing that, okay? Hey, Dr. Fauci is among the one-time members of the Obama administration who must be held accountable for the $3.7 million the U.S. granted to China for coronavirus research back in the year 2014. Some of the money went to the Wuhan laboratory in which the coronavirus pandemic is believed to have originated. Now, Giuliani, the former New York City mayor, now personal legal counsel of President Trump, said in an interview with New York's AM 97 radio, the Cats Roundtable, that he would open up an investigation if he, that he would open up an investigation if he were a U.S. attorney. And hence, U.S. attorney of New York, somebody really wanted to find out what Fauci, who had served as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases since 1984, knew about what was going on in the Wuhan laboratory when the grant was made. The U.S. intelligence community believes the current coronavirus strain may have accidentally escaped from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Anyway, realizes that China was experimenting with the virus in the lab and was weaponizing it. He said the U.S. was prohibited from giving any money to any laboratory that was swimming around with these viruses. So why did we do it? Anyway, despite that, Dr. Fauci gave $3.7 million to the Wuhan laboratory. And even after the State Department issued reports about how unsafe that laboratory was, now suspicious they were in a way of developing now suspicious they were in a way of developing the virus that could be transmitted human. The U.S. never pulled money, Giuliani emphasized to the host of the show. So, something going on, John. I don't know. I don't want any accusations that there's more knowledge about what's going on in China with the Chinese people that needs to be disclosed. And I'm sorry, that was disclosed to us when this first came out. I mean, just think of it. This laboratory turns out to be a place where the virus came from. We paid for it. We paid for the damn virus that's killing us, you want to say. If he were investigating, he said he would pose a number of questions. I want to know, what did we know? How much did we know about how bad the practice worked? Who knew about it? Who sent them money anyway? At first, the shows have to be in front of the grand jury trying to explain to me, what are you, asleep? The Washington Examiner noted it's unclear what oversight Fauci had in the funding decision. However, it was the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases itself that awarded $3.7 million grants to Echo Health Alliance to study the, quote, risk of future coronavirus emergences from wildlife using in-depth field investigations across the human wildlife interface with China, end quote, as wet markets. That actually worked in that area of China. Here on out with the funding went to the Wuhan. The funding was brought up at the White House press briefing. President Trump asked who was president then, I wonder. Everyone knew who it was back in that time frame. We then noted how the funding was approved from 2014 to 2019, including $7 awarded in the Trump administration. And this page or what? This concludes that.
No, that's,
Is it?
yeah.
Anyway, so we gave them money, we paid for virus and AIDS has since infected us with. And trust me, I'm pretty sure this is all planned. There's too much happening at once to be disagreed.
I think it was a trial run just to see how much the Democrats. A footnote here, something that's my observation, I may be wrong, but I noticed the states that had Democratic governors seem to have the most stringent restrictions on their population.
Yes.
It
Now,
seems to be
the
on
only
it that way.
catching people out, Massachusetts governor is a classified as a Republican, but you all know he's actually a rhino. He's just as bad as Democrats are that way.
But you got New York, New Jersey, Michigan, and Minnesota.
they're looking for people from New York City.
Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, you got New York. But, even though we're in Ohio, people are getting tired of being told what they can do and what they can't do. And as I've been watching the news this week, last week, remember I mentioned about up and coming food shortages? This week, the news media has been all over that, at least twice during the week. I didn't see it Friday, I was up in
Oh,
Wells.
speaking of which, I saw today that Johnny Eagle was restricting how much ground meat we can buy at one time.
Yeah, there's going to be rationing, and what gets me is all this fresh fruits that's out in the fields that's going to rot because they can't get social, because they can't get people in here to pick it because of social distancing. And then there's the transportation problem, okay? So it's laying there and being plowed under. Sooner or later, the stockpiles that we have are going to run out. Where is the food going to come from to replenish that stockpile?
I think we're going to get stuff from Chile and Peru.
Well, it may be that way, but I'm just trying to say, where's it going to come from? They're euthanizing pigs and burying them. They're killing off the chickens. They're dumping thousands of eggs a day. Pennsylvania, the farmers are dumping, I don't know if they still are, but they're pouring milk down the drain because they can't get rid of it. The meat packers are closing down because they have a virus problem. I lost my thought again, folks. That's called CRS, can't remember shit. Anyhow.
Well, I know.
They can't afford to house or store the pigs or even beef.
Well, I know.
Butchered.
The Amish farmers I know, do. They sell milk to a cheese factory. You look at one, they cheese, they're not cheese. So they're not dumping their milk.
Well, not all of them are. It's something that,
I wouldn't mind taking, 2 or 3 dozen chickens, because I can take a dozen chickens over to one of the Amish farmers I know in the morning, and pick them up 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and they'll be clean and get it ready for freezing. I can do it 3 days in a row, or I take, and have, 2 dozen, 3 dozen chickens. Freeze, ready to go.
yeah, but you understand what I'm getting at here. We have a certain supply line, and that supply line is going to be hitting a glitch
Yeah.
because there won't be anything coming in that supply line to replace the stockpile. Sooner or later, the stockpile is going to run out. And with the whole world having the same problem, some tough times are coming in the near future.
Now, we do have untapped sources of meat.
We do have an untapped source of meat.
I know some of you may be offended by this and may get sick. That's okay. The Chinese and the Koreans eat dog and cat. And in the March, April time frame when I'm in Korea, that's the culling period when they look for stray dog and cats. Well, they raise. And get them ready for meat markets. Now, I'm not suggesting we start doing that, but just keep that in mind. You might want to do it to your pet, but I know it could be a stray dog or cat shows up on your doorstep. Why let it go to waste?
Well, you're right. It would be a test of fortitude depending on how hungry you are. Okay.
You ever eat dog?
No, but I hear tell it's pretty good.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Same way.
I haven't had in South Korea. Yes, I know dog tastes pretty good. Wouldn't know it was dog.
Yeah, and young woodchuck tastes pretty good.
Good too.
Yeah. And Emmy says here, government has many years' supply of emergency food rations stored underground. We will have to bend a knee in order to get
Right.
food.
Ration cards.
Yeah, ration cards. Just like back in World War II when they had ration cards for food and ration cards for gas and ration cards for tires. Okay? Everything was rationed.
When I was stationed over in Germany, I don't know if they still use the ration cards, but you were issued a ration card for tobacco, coffee, and liquor.
I don't know because we cut so much back out of Europe, it's hard to say. I know a lot of, most of the installations I'm familiar with are gone.
Yeah, I mean, you can eat squirrel, and squirrel is mighty tasty. So is rabbit, and so is pheasant, and guinea hens, and goose, and ducks, and other crackers. But sooner or later, with the abundance of the human beings, that supply is going to get dwindled. Okay? It's basically going to be a supply and demand situation, and like I have said, and I'm going to say it again, there's only two ways to deal with a hungry person. You either feed them or you shoot them. Because if you don't feed them, they're going to try and steal what you got. They still may try and steal what you got. Okay? But if you don't feed them, they're definitely going to try and steal what you got, and will probably try to kill you in order to do that. So, just remember that. Then we go to war. Well, yeah, the question is, who are you going to go to war with? Democratic Party? The Communist Party, like the buildings of Sanders, and that Nazi son of a bitch Soros. Oops, I'm sorry. Might get myself into problems here on YouTube for calling him a son of a bitch, but anyway. All this stuff that's happening right now is all trial runs to ratchet it up. And if you've been paying attention over the years, as we have had problems in this country, they have slowly ratcheted up. Okay, this time we do this. Next time we're going to do this. The next time after that we're going to do this. Now this is a pretty tough one. But for those who grew up in the Depression, which there's not too many of them left, or who grew up during World War II, which there again, there's not too many of them left, this is not as tough as what they had and what they faced. But this could become that, and I don't know if the American people have enough strength and fortitude to fight it. So.
Well, both my parents were born during the Depression. You know, and they lived through WW2 type thing, and now they're both gone.
Where'd they go?
Underground,
Oh,
both gone, deceased.
Yeah, my dad was born at the end of World War I, and he grew up during the Depression, and he didn't fight in World War II because he was in the Army National Guard. He carried the rank of Master Sergeant, but he got his enlistment ran out 6 months before Pearl Harbor, so he went down to re-enlist, and since he had gotten a job working for the railroad, they wouldn't take him. His job was considered necessity.
See, my dad's father was in the Army for WW1, and he worked for the railroad of Massachusetts. And well, he didn't have to serve, but he had four children. He was above the age bracket. But he worked for railroads, so he was essential. My mom's dad, again, he was above age, 4 kids, so he was not required to serve, but he was a carpenter and a mason. And I used to have and I'm not sure what happened to it, he worked in the Philadelphia Navy Yard and was part of the folks that built the battleship Wisconsin. I had a picture of, he gave me a picture of Wisconsin taking it on our sea trials. I had it, I have no idea what happened to it for years. It had been at my parents' house, and I got a bad feeling my mom, I had pitched a whole lot of stuff that I realized now
much I wanted to keep it, so I don't know. But they did tell a few things about what happened during Depression War II time frame.
You pulled out a story, did you, Scotty?
Sure.
Alright.
This is a story taken from the Western Journal, written by Jonathan Jones. Let me dispose of my cup.
Okay.
There we go.
Chewing on the air again, huh?
Yeah. The title of this article is Democrat Lawmakers Smears Shutdown Protests as Exercise in White Privilege. People protesting oppressive and draconian government lockdowns across the country have been deemed miscreants and other unpalatable adjectives by the stay-at-home fearmongers. In Wisconsin, they're simply flexing their white privilege, according to one state lawmaker. Wisconsin State Rep Lakeisha Myers complained after more than 1,500 people showed up in Madison on Friday to protest Democratic Governor Tony Evers' extension of a so-called safer at home order. In a complaint about the protests reported by WISN-TV, Myers lamented the presence of people at the Capitol and accused them of exercising white privilege. The rally held at the Wisconsin State Capitol today by individuals protesting the governor's safer at home order was clearly an exercise in white privilege, Myers said in a statement Friday. The rally held at the Wisconsin, even though a permit was denied and the Capitol building was closed to the public, protesters openly defied the governor's directive by gathering en masse on the Capitol grounds while waving Confederate flags and carrying military-grade assault rifles, she said. Myers further complained that no arrests were made and none of the protesters was cited. Are anti-lockdown rallies an exercise in so-called white privilege? Why have there been no mass arrests or municipal citations issued for this non-essential gathering? In order for us to move past this pandemic and truly flatten the curve, we need compliance from the public. Compliance, she continued. In any other situation, willful non-compliance with the law is met with the full force of law enforcement. Yet when the protesters are predominantly white, and male defiance is rewarded with inaction and complacency, Myers said. Can you imagine being so filled with racial hatred that you become triggered by the appearance of Americans demanding their lives back? Why is it always Democrats looking at skin color when evaluating groups of people, such as citizens of Wisconsin? Myers claimed that after her statement labeling Wisconsinites as a people celebrating white privilege, she was threatened. While I have alerted the proper authorities, I remain steadfast in my thought that we need continued compliance and equity in law enforcement with the governor's safer at home order, she said in a follow-up statement Monday. Although Myers conceded that people of color took part in the Madison protest, she said she stood by her assessment that the rally was an exercise in white privilege. While there were people of color present at the rally, the overwhelming majority of those present were white, she said. It is not lost on me that the response likely would have been very different had the majority of protesters been people of color. This is not speculative, but based on historical facts. It appears that despite efforts by people such as Myers to drive a racial wedge between Americans, economic security is an issue that unites people of all backgrounds. You know, she claims that there's a historical background for the people of color when they gathered. What about this hands up, don't shoot movement? Black Lives Matter, when they were blocking highways. I didn't see mass arrests. When they were taking over campuses, campus community centers, mostly black groups, people of color, no arrests were made. I don't recall seeing anything in the news where these protests by people of color ever having resulted in a mass arrest. What I do remember is a lot of these protests taking a very negative turn, and riots ensuing, looting, turning over cop cars. This was a peaceful protest. Yes, the gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen doing this, they were carrying rifles, but I don't see that, it could have gotten really ugly, but it didn't, because there was restraint. People were just saying, look what we can do. Get your shit together. That's
Well,
right.
it's a two-handed, well, it's a scale. It is balanced towards the blacks, discrimination. If you are white, you are no good piece of shit. You're going to go to jail if you do anything wrong. These people are going to really have to do something 10 times worse than what you do in order to go to jail. But on the same token, the scale bounces the other way because the majority of the prisoners that are in prison are black, people of color, because of what? Because they're too lazy to work, they find it easier to sell drugs and prostitute their family. So they get busted. So when they get busted, well, Whitey's being unfair to me. He shouldn't have arrested me for selling drugs. It doesn't matter how many people may have died from the drugs that I sold. Okay? So we have we have an out of balance scale. Blind justice is not blind. Okay?
She's also a woman, so
Yeah.
it's kind of, that's
Okay,
bad.
so this is the way it is because, yes, was the blacks mistreated 200 years ago? Yes. When they were slaves, yes, they were mistreated. But after slavery was over, they were given, well, they were taken advantage of by carpetbaggers because they were not educated, so they didn't understand when they were given 40 acres and a mule that was given to them for slave reparations so that they could raise their own, have their own farm, own piece of land. Carpetbaggers come in and swindled them out of it. Carpetbaggers come in and swindled a lot of white people out of their property too, by raising the taxes on their property so high that they couldn't pay it.
Another one of the problems, not to interrupt too
Eventually
much.
gone with the wind, there's a thing about that.
Yeah.
There was a, down south more specifically, there was a lot of prisons that leased out their prisoners to these big farming concerns, and predominantly black, and a lot of the, it was essentially legalized slavery for a period of time. It's not talked about a whole lot. You can still find the information, but
Well, I will tell you, based on my experience, that basically people that are in prison right now, that are working at these prison industries for 17 cents an hour, they may have gotten a penny or two raise since I've been there, but anyway, I doubt it. They get 17 cents an hour. To work in the prison industries is nothing more than a form of slavery, cheap labor, okay? They pay them 17 cents an hour so that they can go to the commissary and buy stuff, okay, like, well, they can get ice cream, pretzels and potato chips and all kinds of, goodies, peanut butter and stuff. You get the idea. They can go to the commissary and buy stuff, which then would help appease them and keep them controllable because they're getting something. But the problem is, they got 17 cents an hour. The product was based on, the price of the product was based on what you had to pay for it on the open market outside at the grocery store. And the Bush family at the one facility I was at, Barbara Bush was the biggest stockholder in that commissary there. So, but that's kind of getting off the subject that we're dealing with here, but yet it isn't. Just like that one was that black woman that said that going back to work is an attempt to kill off the black population. can't remember if I pulled that story or if it's in there. Anyway, she was from Wisconsin, I do believe, or Minnesota, maybe. Anyway, now going back to work now is an attempt to kill off the black population.
Actually, because she believes all this fear mongering, this fear, you know, has been induced by the media and people who now know better. Yeah, and once again, and yesterday, to see somebody at a gas station.
I don't know. Bob said to me, I don't know what I was saying there, Bob, if anyone should know that, it's you. Oh, maybe because of the prison story. Yeah.
But you can see how the fear people have. And when it's bad when you go to the store, and a lot of people don't have the mask on until they get right up in your store. And then a lot of people see, well, as soon as they get out of the store, like Triangle or something like that, off with the mask. And the other people who as soon as they get out of their car, they put the mask on, and you don't take it off until they get back to their car. Or worse, people coming in or out of parking lots with the mask already on or left on. You're in the gas station the last couple days. Why would you're outside in the sun, moving air, gas mask, your mask on, pumping gas? That's ridiculous. But that's...
You know, I was just saw something today when I was doing research. There has not been a new case of coronavirus in Crawford County for 9 days. They've only had 19 cases, knock on wood. That's where it stands. But with no coronavirus, we don't need to be we should not have to wear masks. Okay?
Yeah, well, that's...
Okay? We should not have to wear masks.
I didn't have time to print this off because it was late getting up here. But the evils of wearing a mask were so long. You had the carbon dioxide buildup in your mask.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one case last week where a guy in New Jersey had a mask on for at least 7 hours, they said. He's driving his car with a mask on. He passed out with lack of oxygen.
Yeah, because it got clogged up with the vapors or whatever, and the material swelled and...
He crashes, and, But that's the thing, and then you're breathing in.
Uh-oh. What?
I just saw a funny meme on Facebook. It said, if you can harness your inner Twilight Zone, imagine, if you will, a world where Cinco de Mayo falls on Taco Tuesday, only to be ruined by a virus named after a Mexican beer.
Speaking of which, Cinco de Mayo was yesterday?
May 5th, Cinco.
Oh, that's just, it's coming, okay. It's also Cinco de Mayo Box of Ammo Day.
Do you know what tomorrow is?
Monday.
Okay.
He's got a dumbfounded look. We blew it.
Now he has something else in mind. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It is my birthday.
Oh, your birthday. Does that make you 19?
It makes me 50.
50?
Freaking 50!
50?
May 4th.
Reed, I've known you for 30-some years. Holy shit, a brick man.
Yep, you've known me since I was 16, I think.
Yeah. I told him everything he knows.
Yeah.
The only reason he's like he is he hung around me.
And also, not to step on your toes, tomorrow is also the 50th anniversary of the Kent State shooting.
Yeah, well,
Ohio National Guard 4, hippie 0.
I have mixed thoughts about that. And since you brought it up,
I read some of that. The National Guards, they were being fired upon by some in the crowd. Or more than one person. I don't know. Wasn't there?
well, I wasn't there either, but news reports show that there was a couple of carloads of guns and ammo found the night before the shooting. on campus. Okay? So if they found 2, how many did they not find? And that would put you in such a jittery state, okay? Because some of those college riots or protests that were going on during the Vietnam War,
Sponsored by the KGB.
yeah, were got a little violent. So they still haven't discerned whether they were gunshots that were fired or somebody launched a bunch of loud firecrackers like an M80. Okay. But when that happened and over the knoll comes 50,000 screaming, yelling dickheads and stupid women. Not all women are stupid, don't get me wrong. But at that time they were. Come screaming over a hill, charging a line of National Guard. What do you expect's going to happen? Okay? Just what the hell do you expect's going to happen?
The bar line from Zulu, at 100 yards, throwing fire.
Fire! They could do that 8 times without after reloading because they were using M1 Grands. Yes.
And of course, you line them up right, you can probably go through 6 or 7 people.
Yeah, especially if you're using that little black tip bullet. But anyway, yeah, it was a tragic day. I know the National Guard in Ohio took a bad rap for it, which they shouldn't have. The people that should take the bad rap are the college students that were at the campus that were taking part in that riot instead of doing what? Being in class and getting an education that your mom and pop are probably paying for you.
They've been finals time.
What's that?
They're in finals. You're in the finals. Semester.
Yeah. Get ready for the finals, yeah.
You know, not to hammer the National Guard or be negative towards them, but it kind of shows another reason why the military is not and should not be used for law enforcement.
Oh, yeah, I
They
agree.
just don't have the skill set.
Yeah.
They don't.
Well, I agree with you 100%. They don't have the skill set to deal with it. But they are basically, when the civil authorities can't handle it, they're the last resort. And what happens, and this is not the first time that the National Guard has been involved in a shooting inside the United States. Down in Pennsylvania, center part of Pennsylvania, where the coal miners were, they were on strike. And they were refusing to go to work. Maybe it wasn't Pennsylvania, maybe it was down in Virginia. But anyway, they were refusing to go to work, and the owners called in the National Guard, and the miners were demonstrating. They didn't have any weapons. They had a couple of clubs or a shovel or something like that, but the National Guard was throwing around them and opened fire and killed a bunch of them. Okay. George Washington, President of the United States, led troops against the Whiskey Rebellion here in Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah, 17.
Okay. And there's other cases of it happening. I can't think of them right off the top of my head. So.
But it's certainly not something that they really want to.
Yeah, and they don't want you to know about the bonus march down in Washington after World War I, where the veterans were promised a bonus. I forget what the amount was, and they weren't giving it to them. So in 1921, or no, a little later, when the Depression started, because they were losing everything, they went and they built Cardboard City on the mall, which is now the reflecting pool, by the way, so that people can't go in there and do that again. They called in the Army, led by, orders given by MacArthur, led by Patton, to go in and destroy and burn that tent city down, in which 7 or 8 veterans were killed. Okay? And they brought tanks in to get rid of them.
Remember that James Garner movie, Tank?
Yeah,
That was funny.
yeah, yeah. But, so this is not anything new, and will it happen again? Most likely. I'm surprised it hasn't with the situation that's going on right now. Okay?
Between July of 1980 and November of 1980, I made 3 trips to then Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
For what?
Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Fort Chaffee.
Because of peanut farmer within all these hundreds of thousands of Cubans. And I mean, police folks at Fort Chaffee, a bunch of folks at Fort Sill, artillery and support folks that we weren't allowed to carry weapons because of posse comitatus. The law enforcement folks had weapons, but all we could have was billy clubs. But we got to train how to use nightsticks on how to harm somebody. And of course, we were trained in anti-riot control activities.
My brigade, when I was stationed out at Fort Carson, we were activated to go fight forest fires. Or mobilized, not activated, mobilized. We were sent up to the Ward White complex in Boise National Forest. We dug a trench, a fire trench around the top of this mountain to keep it from burning any farther down. Hardest 3 weeks of my life, Jesus. You were up with the sun, before the sun, and you were fed, and we were bussed up into down these little logging trails, and we were basically getting off the bus as the sun was coming up, and we marched an hour in, and we dug and dug and dug, and we were getting on the bus as the sun was going down. And
I can do it again.
yep, and we did it for 3 straight weeks. We got it under control, and they sent us back. Very nice.
Well, getting back to the problem.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's good to relate these things to kids, because some of these kids probably don't remember that kind of stuff. And some of it that goes way back is because I'm a history buff, and I may not have the dates and exact facts right, but the facsimile is there. You can, if you want to find out, you can always go online. Yes, go online or dig out a history book and read about it. Mr. Schiff appears to blame senators who acquitted Trump for the 50,000 virus deaths. This off the WorldNet Daily, first appeared on Western Journal. Remember how we were all supposed to be in the coronavirus thing together?
You know what? I still have my nightstick.
Don't tell that to the denizens of Congress, who are still busy blaming each other for not caring enough about the novel coronavirus. Novel? What's so novel about it? Well, it's a major book. Well, at least some of us don't.
Still being written.
Yeah, it's still being written. Well, at least some of us don't imply that the senators who refuse to convict Donald Trump of not crimes he was impeached for have the blood of 50,000 people on their hands. Thank goodness for Adam Schiff, a man who tells it like it isn't. Excuse me. Where I lost my thing. Oh, Schiff was a Democrat point man for the fast-tracking the president impeachment through Congress in the most debased sort of a way, conducting an injury in the same way that shows trials are inquiries. He and other Democrats then insisted that the Senate actually take this whole thing very seriously, and then they refused to play by those rules, pitched it. Schiff was the lead impeachment manager during the trial, disguising himself only by now boring he was. We all have more weighty things to worry about now and more than are willing to stay away from the argument that impeachment spectacle had any impact on the coronavirus planning. Okay, I'm not going to go on anymore now because this bunch of garbage. I don't want to give this guy any credit. I want him to sink in his own shit. But because the attention, his attention particularly, because he was on the Intelligence Committee, who is supposed to know things about what's going on in the world, because he is on the Intelligence Committee, chose to ignore information that was coming across his desk about the coronavirus, because he was on the Intelligence Committee, up to his asshole in trying to figure out a way to get rid of President Trump. Now, on the same token, Trump was out there following the advice of his supporters or personnel. They didn't always give him good advice, but this was the first time dealing with a thing like this, so not all advice is going to work, not all of it's going to be good, some of it's going to be bad. Especially with Foshi or whatever his name was. Fossey? Flossie. Sounds like a girl I knew.
Oh, and Dr. Burns?
Anyway, I see when Trump announced the medicine for malaria, chloroquine, was being touted as being a possible treatment, and then all of a sudden everybody was on him because he made that statement. No, well, just yesterday I saw, or today I saw a story where a nursing home, oh, it's there, Fox News, you got it.
You want it?
No, go ahead. No, we're going to take a break here in a couple minutes. I'll finish my thought. Anyway, Mr. T will have the story when we come back after break, but
Well, I got time to do probably this one.
the nursing home, okay, well, if you got time to do that, we'll go ahead.
Before I go into this story about this governor, I think it was Thursday or Friday, there was a news conference going on involving the governor of Illinois. And he was accused, and rightly so, of not obeying his own stay-at-home order in the state of Illinois. And he was asked at a press conference, point blank, why his wife and children departed Illinois by private aircraft to the state of Florida. Now, reporters had proof. The governor denied it every single time. No, I don't want to discuss family. I don't bring my family in politics. He tried to get it right the way he could. They had him. And he just said he wasn't discussing. So, just do as I say and not as I do. Well, now, Prime Minister Governor of South Dakota. If anybody has seen a picture of South Dakota Governor Christy Nolan, she's not bad looking at all. Anyway.
Oh.
This is the type of governor that we should have here in Pennsylvania. Of course, we don't. We have one who, one of the stringent, not these stringent, one of the stringent stay-at-home orders or directives that put out. But anyway, South Dakota Governor Christy Nolan, know him? No, who did not issue a stay-at-home order for her state, was surprised with a parade in her honor. As the residents praised Republican leadership during the coronavirus pandemic. Video footage posted on the governor's Twitter account shows fire trucks blaring their sirens and people honking from their cars as Nolan walks out what appears to be the governor's Madison Perry. Pierre. The woman filming her tells the governor, "It's a parade for you. Wave to them." And Nolan waves as he appears to be a little emotional. "I am so glad to serve people of the great state of South Dakota," she said, tweeted, "You folks made my day." She expressed her gratitude to residents in an interview with Go Watertown, saying that you can't describe this to the people in other states. I just love this state and these people, and they're amazing. And I love it, she said. No made headlines and received criticism during the pandemic refusing to implement stay-at-home order from the state, but she refused to back down. Me personally, and you politicians out there, people in leadership positions, with law enforcement, whatever, she goes, I took an oath to uphold our state constitution. I took an oath when I was in Congress to uphold the United States Constitution. So I believe people's freedoms and liberty and always balance that with every decision I make as governor, she told Braveheart News. I get every concern with leaders who take too much power in a time of crisis because they think that's how I think that's how we directly lose our country someday, by people, leaders overstepping their proper role. Governor Wolf, one of all those guys, she added she does not believe in a one-size-fits-all approach, like our governor does, because South Dakota has pretty diverse communities. I want to raise some flexibility there for local folks to make decisions, but also recognizing that when it comes down to it, these guys had to take on the personal responsibility that's necessary to really go after this virus. Although she did not impose a stay-at-home order, she did place some restrictions on her state. Schools have been closed since March 16th, and businesses were directed to follow Centers for Disease Control, Prevention Guidelines, and social distancing. She didn't close them. Businesses. The governor told Breitbart News that despite early projections of a surge of coronavirus patients on state hospitals, South Dakota has cut down the protection level by 75%, and only 111 people, 111 people total have been hospitalized with coronavirus. We proudly promote our projections and studying the science behind the virus won't reach our peak until middle of June, she said. But we already have done much better than we thought we would be, have been hitting our state already. As of last Tuesday morning, there have been 2,245 cases of coronavirus in South Dakota and 11 fatalities, according to data from Johns Hopkins. This article appeared in the Western Journal. So,
before we go for break, I do have to tell Bob I stand corrected on some of my facts for the bonus army. You're right, Bob, they didn't have tanks, they did ride cavalry, and my bad. But that's what I like about you guys out there, because you're always out there thinking. Yeah, you may not be thinking right, but you're all thinking. I got one here from Emmy. Where'd it go? Some woman that just did, come on, here it is. Oh, well, the Dems don't care about Biden, and me too. Just as long as Trump doesn't get reelected. One feminist said she didn't care if 100 women are raped by Biden as long as no Trumpy victory.
Yeah.
Okay? Somebody take that bitch out and whack her, well, I won't say where. Anyway. Okay, kids, we're going to take a break at 7 o'clock. We'll be back in about 5. Lisa back. At least I's back. I don't know why we took a 5-minute break. We didn't shut up. We.
Hey, Amy, I don't know about Jack. He and I were on Facebook earlier this afternoon before I had to get off to come up here. And I had commented to him that I had posted 2 things on Facebook, or I should say, I tried to post 2 things on Facebook, and neither one of them got posted. Now, I don't know why, because neither one of them should have violated any of their roving, moving community standards, because one was just a comment about the weather and everybody around me, my township road, up and down the road, driving around, enjoying a nice, warm, sunny afternoon, getting those virus-killing UV rays, people out with pulling the boats, people on motorcycles, the interstate next to me is, again, full of people driving down, pulling boats, kayaks, whatever. So that didn't get posted, I don't know why. And I was trying to do another post showing our Governor Wolf's plan to open up, I think it's 26 counties come the 8th, and versus a Republican state rep who, looking at the numbers, said, well, wait a minute, we should open up all these states. And I was trying to post those 2 things, and that wouldn't post either, wouldn't show up. So I don't know what's going on here, and like we were talking before we came online, maybe Jackson YouTube jail, I don't know. Now, I did get, a few days ago, I had posted something, I think it was 3 weeks ago, but AOC, I forget exactly what it was on, she was, I think it was wanting me, gun confiscation or something, I forget, and anyway, I suggested she lead the way, be the first one in line, and then YouTube, FB came back just a couple days ago saying they violated their community standards and took it off.
Speaking of gun confiscation, our neighbors to the north.
Oh, 1,500, yes. To include shotguns.
Mm-hmm. Ban so-called assault weapons.
Bolt action rifles too.
Mm-hmm. Well, here a few years ago they banned everything over 75 caliber. No, maybe it was over 70 caliber. I know that what there was a.
Well, some of your muskets are that.
Yeah, well, their muskets are 70. Brown Bess is 72 or 75 caliber. I forget exactly what it is. But they banned everything that was up to that size or over that size because it was classified as an anti-tank weapon. How clever of the British to develop an anti-tank weapon 50 or 200 to 300 years before the tank. Well, we know they're going to do that, so we're going to have an anti-tank weapon ready for them. Yeah.
Didn't Leonardo da Vinci design a form of a tank?
He did.
Yeah, he designed the form of a tank, form of a helicopter, hot air balloon things, and I mean, he was way ahead of his time, born in the wrong century.
Yeah.
And that. So, but yeah, he developed a tank and so many other things. And that. So, anyway, who's got the next story?
Oh, I guess I can look one up. All right, I'll read this one. Trump preparing retaliatory actions against China. This is by Marissa Herman.
Oh my God! Nuclear war's about to break out!
President Donald Trump has publicly said he wants China to pay for the coronavirus outbreak. Now, senior U.S. officials are beginning to look into ways to punish or demand financial compensation from China for its involvement in handling of the pandemic, the Washington Post reports. Senior administration officials with knowledge of internal planning told the newspaper that several agencies are supposed to meet Thursday to come up with a strategy for seeking retaliatory measures against China. Pushing China is definitely where the president's head is at right. Punishing China is definitely where the president's head is right now, a senior advisor said. In private, Trump and his aides have discussed stripping China of its sovereign immunity, which would then enable the U.S. government or victims to sue China for damages. George Sorial, who formerly served as a top executive at the Trump Organization and is involved in a class action lawsuit against China, told the Washington Post he and senior White House officials have discussed limiting China's sovereign immunity. Legal experts say that it could require congressional action. Some members of Congress have already drafted their own laws that would strip China of immunity. I'm not going to go any farther than that.
Yeah, no, because then it gets to be repeat.
Yeah.
Personally, you want to punish China, stop all trade. Yes, they make products that we need, but we're intelligent people. We can get up here and put all these abandoned factories back to work that were abandoned because of the trade deals to all these other foreign countries. We could produce it ourselves. After all, we're the ones that produced it, designed it, and then sold it to the Chinese, or they stole it from us.
The American people have gotten soft. They need to worry less about what they have. You know, it just, people want more stuff.
Well,
So
it's just
they
like
want
right
more
now,
cheap stuff.
right now with this coronavirus thing and the unemployment compensation and that, a lot of the people that aren't getting the unemployment are getting more than what they were making when they were working. Okay, there was a restaurant, I
Yeah.
think up in New York, but I may be wrong. They interviewed the owner, and he was opening up a limited basis, and he went to call a couple of his employees back to work. And they didn't want to come back to work because they were making more on unemployment than they would come to work.
Someone mentioned that on Facebook, that they know people who are making more money now being laid off than they were when they were working. And they're saying, why say, well, why can't I go back to work? I think in Pennsylvania, if you are offered your job back and you don't go,
You're cut off.
you're cut off.
That's right. Well, that's the way it should be. You know, if you get a phone call and say, hey, we want you to come back to work starting so-and-so, and you say, no, I'm better off not working, then your employer should call the unemployment, and not to be a spy, but report it and say, hey, this person was offered the opportunity to come back, and they said no. Take them off the unemployment, because the employer has to chip into that fund too. And that, so it's not as if it's a fund that is created by taxpayers' money. It's money that comes from the employer, paid into an unemployment compensation fund. And that.
Before I forget, I don't like the South Dakota governor, Chris Nolan, did not issue any kind of stay-at-home order. We all know that Commissar Wolf did here for Pennsylvania. And out came word last week of his map of PA putting counties from red to yellow, mostly in the northern tier counties. And very vague, at least to me, because how you know what his plan is to do all this, and there's some wording on there that like, what does aggressive mitigation mean? Now, supposedly, tomorrow he's supposed to announce exactly how his plan is supposed to work. So for those of us in Pennsylvania, and you're in Northern Tier County, I think our west side goes from Lawrence to Erie, and let's see, Mercer, Butler, anyway, it goes to Lycoming, anyway. If you're a county that's supposed to go yellow on May the 8th, pay attention, maybe tomorrow you come out, what the governor, or how he explains this process of how you determine which counties go to yellow and what's going to be done to, his enforcement, I guess, a different thing.
Well,
actually on Facebook, I tried to post two things. One was the governor's map, and one of a Republican state rep who had a different plan based on numbers that more counties should open up, and Facebook wouldn't post that for some reason.
well, two things. I heard, number one, that I heard for a county to get opened up, it had to have less than 50, I believe it is, confirmed cases of the coronavirus.
No, because
Okay, that's what I heard.
I know
Okay.
counties that are above 50, less than 60 that are going to open up.
Yeah, but if they haven't had any after a certain amount of time,
Yes.
even though they had more, then they could be classified. Now, I got a letter today. Well, it was actually here yesterday. I just opened it today. I got a letter from my church. And in the information that they have, a church that has less than 50 parishioners showing up, okay, for service, are allowed to have in-house service. Refraining from singing hymns because that puts a lot of vapors into the air. Okay. Now, if the church, which our church does, have more than 50 parishioners showing up, they cannot open up and have cannot have in-house church service. So we will still have to watch the service on television. But you can go to the church, but you got to wear a face mask when you go into the church, but you can't stay to do any worshiping and that. So it's going to be a convoluted mess because you're going to have so many restrictions that if you are purple, you got this one, and if you're red, you got that one, and if you're black, you got this one, and if you happen to be a rotten old son of a bitch, well, then you don't have to pay attention to any of them.
Well, in the church I usually attend, the masses don't usually have close to 50 people in it at one time. I mean, or sometimes it doesn't, maybe another 50. The church I was at today, there were less than 50. But nobody wore a mask. And I know Ohio did not close churches, but Pennsylvania did. Ohio, and a lot of health department folks that know that, the governor wanted to put out, I guess, if you can have a church service if you have less than 50 people in attendance. You maintain your social distancing and all that good stuff. You know, a lot of health folks that knew that or didn't understand that, but anyway. So churches in Ohio, for the most part, weren't shut down per se by the government, unlike Pennsylvania. Of course, I know as far as the Catholic Church was concerned, the bishops in both Ohio and Pennsylvania just roll over and play dead. The governors and closed down almost everything except for a few priests that were I'm going to have mass whether you like it or not, they're bishop. So they have. So anyway, I won't say where they are. That location remains secret.
Well, like I said, waits to be seen. It's not going to open all up at one time, and we're probably going to see a lot of contradictions. Okay.
Yeah, because people want to know when we go yellow, you still have to wear a face mask or wear the businesses. And what I understand, the answer is yes, but it's not. Is it required or just recommended? I don't know.
Well, that's it. Now, right now, as it stands with them opening the tobacco shops up on Friday, they can only allow 2 people in at a time, and they got to be wearing masks.
Oh, because everybody's still in the red.
Yeah.
Red. So,
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. This is not going to go away soon, unfortunately, and that's playing into the hands of the Democrats. They want it to be, they want it to be an inconvenience to show how brilliant they are in looking out for ourselves or our people. Yeah. Anyway.
What did you say?
Yeah. Barbara Streisand, yes. I'm gonna change the direction here for a minute. Officials approve loudspeaker broadcast the Muslim call to prayer in U.S. neighborhood. World Met Daily, the Western Journal. The Muslims' call to prayer will be broadcast over loudspeakers 5 times a day throughout Redmond in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood of Minneapolis. This will be the first time the call to prayer, usually broadcast from mosques in Muslim countries, will be sounded in Minnesota, according to Minnesota Star Times. The arrangement was approved by Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry on April 21st in collaboration with Minnesota's Council on American Islamic Relations and
Terrorist group.
the Dar Hajjab Mosque.
Let me tell you something, okay? Back in 2004, 5, 6, and 7, between Iraq, Kuwait, and Qatar, you hear that 5 times a day. I don't care what Obama said, it's not the sweetest music on earth.
Well, Obama was a Muslim anyway, so I would think so.
So you folks in
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, you know, you can cut the wires, push up the power, take the towers down.
Use a chainsaw.
Do us a favor.
Take a chainsaw and cut the pole down. At the time when physical distancing requires we pray apart, it's incumbent on leaders to create a sense of togetherness when we can, Fry said in a news release. What the hell are you talking about? We're all in this together apart. And bullshit. Okay. Adam provides solidarity and comfort, both of which are essential during the time of crisis, the Democrats said. As our Muslim community prepares for Ramadan, we hope the broadcast will offer a measure of stability and reassurance of our entire city that we are all very much in this together.
Anybody from Minneapolis listening, get rid of your mayor now.
Yeah. Impeach him, tar and feather him, run him out of town on a post. And if the city council goes along with it, you do the same thing with them. The loudspeaker that the prayer will be broadcast from will be located outside a mosque and will reach thousands of residents. Probably loud enough to reach all the way to, where is it, Mecca? Anyway. CAIR, C-A-I-R, Minnesota's Executive Director Jalen Hussan said the Muslim community will welcome the mayor's efforts. This call to prayer will especially be meaningful to the many senior citizens in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood who have been isolated due to the pandemic, Hussan said in the news release. It will help them feel more connected to their community and mosque in this sacred month.
Who cares?
Who gives a flying shit?
Okay.
You are in the United States of America. I understand you want to maintain your religion and all that. That's very well fine. But we're not allowed to play jingle bells in our music and around out there because it might be offensive to you. I do believe that this could be classified as being offensive to Christians.
It is a.
It is to me, you're right. I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If we can't, you
I
can't.
can't be in a Muslim country you have to listen to that stuff.
Well, that's
We're
because
not
we're
here.
here. Yeah, we're not
You don't
here.
have to listen to that. And I went where there is, they started a bunch of tannerite and poles, and we shot it and blew it up, took down the pole.
Mhm.
Oh, can I say that? How about?
Well, you were just thinking,
I'll say that one.
what would happen? What would happen if somebody did that? Heaven forbid. But anyway,
I have a chapter on media.
I'm not gonna, there's not much more to it, so I'm not gonna, Minneapolis will be the first U.S. city to broadcast Muslim prayers. Dearborn, Michigan has done so for years, and the city of, Minnesota is not. Patterson, New Jersey just approved a request to broadcast prayers in March. Okay. Again, when I said, we're not allowed to show or play Christmas music at Christmas time because that is our Christian heritage.
It might be offensive to Muslims.
Because it's offensive to Muslims. What makes you think that you should be allowed to do yours, which is then is offensive to me? When you get off your high horse and ask for the rollback of all the restrictions on Christianity in this country, then you can go ahead and pray all you want, where you want. Just don't stick your ass up in the air so it gets hit by a lawnmower when it comes by.
So you should be surprised at all what's going up when it shoots the speaker so much just working.
Well, if the person's good, shot one or two shots to do it.
Yeah. Well, he might have anger issues. He might want to get off his chest.
Well, double odd luck. Bullets won't go very far, but boy, if the close range, they'll take care of it.
Oh yeah, if you think couldn't have maybe 40, I would play with it. I'll just take it, fire around that. I'll just shoot it around the bullets. Take it on my first tree.
So, does Scotty want to do this one?
I can.
Getting back to our coronavirus and friends to the north.
Oh,
Friends?
alrighty.
And friends of the north. You talking about New York City?
Okay.
New York State?
Cuomo uses hundreds of handmade masks to decorate briefing backdrop instead of distributing them. Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York revealed a decorative display on Wednesday made from hundreds of handmade protective masks sent to the state in hopes of preventing public health resource shortages. Cautiously optimistic, the hard-hit state may finally have seen the worst of the ongoing pandemic. Cuomo took a moment during his daily news conference to applaud citizens across the nation for coming together and donating whatever they could to aid New York's coronavirus response effort. America was when I said, we need help in our emergency rooms and hospitals, and 95,000 nurses and doctors from across the nation said, we will come to New York to help. Cuomo said, that's America, that's who we are, and that's who we have shown ourselves to be in the middle of this crisis. The crisis brings out the best and the worst. Yes, and the best of America is beautiful, he said. According to Cuomo, nothing better exemplified that than the display he was about to unveil, a collage of donated medical masks pinned to the wall. I'm not going to go any farther. It's just asinine.
In a time of when they were complaining about being shortages of everything, he's taking masks that were donated and pinning them to a wall as a mosaic pattern for publicity stunt, instead of distributing to the people that need it.
It's all political theater.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And people want him to run for president.
Yeah, they want him as a Democrat. Well, like I said, with Biden having a problem sees heaven, watch for a brokered convention for the Democrats.
Or they'll nurse him along until he gets they figure he gets elected, and whoever his VP is the heir apparent.
Yeah, especially if they put Hildebeest in there. Do not be surprised.
If she's a VP, well, I think best. Does Biden even make it to the inauguration? And what happens if the the president to be nominated and the sworn in dies? Does the VP to be already become president to be? And then,
I would say yes.
The vice president would have to step up as the presidential candidate, and then the committee would the Democratic committee would have to appoint a new vice president candidate to fill that place. At least that's technically the way it's supposed to go.
All bets are
who
off
they
now.
pick? Not Mike. I mean Michelle.
So, yeah, it's a convoluted mess out there, and there are so many ways things can go. I saw Trump speak, or not Trump. I saw Biden speaking here the other day, and it's kind of a little bit, and
That the interview with that Mika character.
He's off the rails.
Biden was so incoherent. I mean, he just went off like a blathering idiot.
He mentioned his records in Delaware. Now, I read that his records at Delaware University, or anyway, were supposed to be open for the public at the end of 2019, but they're still locked up, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's he hiding?
Lying. Yeah, they don't want him to get out and tell. Otherwise, they'd have to Epstein him. Anyway, yeah, a lot of people are saying that here that there's a lot of dirt. Obama has a lot of dirt on several different people, and he probably does. But you know what? If it furthers the cause of the national communists in this country, then they will use that for that purpose. They will weed out the weaker communists to get a stronger one in there to proceed with their dismantling of America. And if you don't believe me, I've told people this before, go dig up the miniseries that was on television back, I believe was the 80s, I may be wrong on the decade, but right around that time period, called America Spelt with a K, with Chris Christopherson as one of the leading characters. It shows what happens after the United States has a breakdown and broken up into 10 UN districts, which there are maps out there that you can pull up online from the UN that show those 10 districts, which then are being broken up and forming a government of their own. 10 different countries. And so if you want to take a look and see what I'm talking about, that's fine. And I will tell you, I've said this before, Hollywood is always telegraphing you what's coming down the pike. You just have to be able to keep your eyes open to see it. And it's not something that's going to happen right now, today, tomorrow. It may be 10 years down the road, but it's coming.
Okay.
I'm just glad that the whole dinosaur thing didn't happen.
Well, they're trying to restart their DNA. Wonder how they're coming on that mammoth that they found intact in Siberia. Was it Siberia? They were able to successfully extract some DNA from it. So they were going to try and recreate it.
As long as they don't try to recreate the dinosaurs.
Well, the people are so stupid enough that they would do that. They would think they were intelligent, but if they could find some DNA from a dinosaur, you can almost bet your bottom dollar they would try to do that.
Well, yeah, they would.
It's because we can. Well, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That was a line from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Just because Jeff Goldblum's character. Just
Yeah.
because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yep.
Anyway, let me do this one here. It's not the virus issue. I'll do that one. Historic deadlines in U.S. math and reading scores since Common Core implementation.
Oh, yeah.
This is published in WorldNet Daily, originally published in the Western Journal. Supporters of the Common Core education system will not be pleased with the findings of a new study. And anybody who knew better would say you guys should have tried in the first place. But anyway, U.S. reading and math scores on multiple assessments have all seen historic declines since most states implemented National Common Core English and Math curriculum standards 6 years ago.
according to a Monday release from the Pioneer Institute. In the conclusion of the study, the Common Core debacle, Arthur Theodore Barber slammed Common Core's failings. The notion that a single set of national curriculum standards could be wielded by educational policy elites, most with little experience operating successful schools, to create excellence in classrooms across America has been a dream for many decades, except now it seems more like hubris. According to the Common Core website, the Common Core state standards were supposed to ensure students of all ages gain the knowledge and life skills necessary to succeed in colleges and their careers. The website also claims the idea that adopting common standards means bringing all state standards down to the lowest common denominator is a myth. The standards are designed to build upon the most advanced current thinking about preparing all students for success in college, career, and life. This will result in moving even the best standards to the next level. But the evidence brought forward by the Pioneer Institute's study suggests this has not been the case. Now, the Pioneer Institute is an independent, partly funded research organization based in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The group conducted the study by comparing 4th and 8th grade students' achievement scores on the National Assessment of Educational Progress after the implementation of Common Core to the scores before Common Core's implementation. From 2003 to 2013, the national 4th and 8th grade reading scores were increasing on average about 1/2 point each year, according to the news. According to the study, widespread implementation of Common Core occurred in most states in the year 2014. Since that time, where Common Core has been implemented, 4th grade reading skills have been falling by less than 1/2 point per year, while 8th grade reading scores have dropped by nearly a full point a year during those years. The study also found on average that national math grade scores for 4th and 8th grade students were rising before Common Core was implemented. Post-Common Core, scores of both grades had fallen, with 8th grade levels at nearly the same rate. I missed a word here somewhere. Post-Common Core scores of both grades had fallen, with 8th grade scores at nearly the same rate as which they were previously increasing. So they were going down at a rate they were increasingly going up. So really, bad news for Common Core. Common Core removed the fundamental competitive nature of education reforms. They try to make schools easier and not to have students feel bad about their whatever. Anyway, I forget the exact word it is. Before Common Core, or before the earlier congressional mandate on curriculum standards, states competed to design the best educational reforms. State it again. Before Common Core and before the earlier congressional mandate on curriculum standards, states competed to design the best educational reforms, including the best policies on curriculum and standards and local control. It was an entrepreneurial and vibrant atmosphere. Some states did a better job in some areas, other states picked some ideas from other states. We also have avoided nationwide debacle like Common Core. Overall, the study indicated that kids from different states and communities have different needs. Imagine that. To the more bottom-up approach, more school systems will have the opportunity to choose curricula consistent with their international competitors and many decades of research on effective classroom teaching. According to Barber, and again, this article appeared originally in the Western Journal. That's it. We know a teacher who's now retired who may mention to us years ago the problems children had under Common Core in grasping some of the easiest concepts, not to mention the harder ones, because the way Common Core was structured, it was not a good thing. Now, I am not going to praise homeschooling. No, it works. Not everybody can do it, especially if both parents work. Of course, you know someone who has homeschooled and will homeschool your kids as well as theirs. But homeschooling, as we did not have Common Core standards. I don't know the current course do. I'm guessing not from how long he was doing it. But I know some of my children have been in job positions where, all three of them anyway, have been in job positions where when the power went out of the place of business, they were still trying to do sales. The other salespeople, employees working registers, could not use a calculator to figure out prices and taxes. Okay, and in one particular business, which remained nameless, we had several floors. I had a daughter who was constantly on call and going from one floor to the next. I help these hapless people who couldn't use a calculator to ring up sales. Two of my kids worked fast food. Not always on the same shift, but there again, they seem to be the only ones who knew how to use calculators when the power went out in order to calculate sales, taxes.
Heaven help them if they didn't have calculators, they wouldn't know how to figure it out in their head on a piece of paper.
I mean, and to have them come back and tell my wife and I these stories was just totally, you'd say, word amazing, mind-boggling. Where else? It's just it's unbelievable.
Well,
you know, people lacked.
You know, one way to control a population is to dumb them down. Okay, well, what better way to dumb them down, because you've got it so everybody's... You gotta go, do you, Scott?
My head's killing me.
Your head's killing you.
Yeah, my sinuses are getting all jacked.
Yeah? Well, don't use a 45 caliber cleaning brush.
I will not do that.
Anyway, is to keep them dumbed down. Because if they can't think and reason, then they don't know enough to question. Okay, and that's exactly what the powers that be of certain countries want. They only want a certain elite group that know anything to become the future leaders. All the rest of them, they want them dumbed down so that they will not question working in menial labor and not have the gumption to get ahead.
The problem, my two kids that work fast food, they were often asked if they weren't actually working the register. They were, I need help calculating change. But these other cashiers, the people running cashiers, could not use a calculator to calculate change. Mm-hmm. Or even on paper to calculate change. Could you help me?
Well, that's why when you see you go into McDonald's, because most everybody goes there. A lot of people don't. But the computer comes up and you don't see the screen, but the computer comes up when they punch in the information and it tells them how much it is. Then they punch in how much you gave them, and the computer tells them how much change to give you back.
I know. Okay. I know.
They don't have to do any thinking.
But when that system doesn't work,
they're stuck.
And I've bought some things here. Actually, just not too many months ago, before this hoax started, this virus, and I paid for the product I bought
And I already calculated change in my head. And, wait a minute, you didn't give me back enough change. Yeah, I didn't, no. I gave you this for this amount, the change should be this. Took the person a few minutes to figure out that they were wrong.
Did they have to call the manager to come and help them?
Well, that happened, they inputted the wrong number into their machine.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they had asked for help. What did I do wrong? Oh, you put the wrong number in. So, yeah.
You know, we have been touching on how the American population is growing more towards communism, or accepting communism. Okay, well, I got a little bit of a story here. Communists lied and people died off of WorldNet Daily. Worldviews have consequences. The pandemic that grips the whole world is symptomatic of a deadly grip of ungodly leadership in China holds over a wide population, including tens of millions of Chinese Christians. The coronavirus did not just come out of nowhere. The Communist Chinese Party, the CCP, claims that it came out of the wet market in Wuhan, a city of about 11 million people. But there is evidence that it may have originated in the biolab, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, in other words, virus. Stephen Mosier, the president of the Population Research Institute, certainly thinks so. He says corners were being cut, leading to the virus escaping the lab, but the CCP tried to hide those things. As we know now, they allowed flights from Wuhan to the rest of the world, but not flights from Wuhan to other parts of China. They knew. So rather than spread it to other parts of China, they didn't allow flights to go there. Anywhere in China, they allowed them to go overseas. Recently, I interviewed Mosier on my radio show, and he argued, this didn't come from nature, this comes from man. This came from the leadership of the Communist Party, which was putting a rush on research in the biolab in Wuhan. And I think they were putting so much pressure on the research that researchers cut corners and this dangerous coronavirus escaped from the lab. Mosier continued, and the story gets even worse, because after escape it could have been contained very, very quickly by using means we're all familiar with. Contact tracing, finding out who the patient zero was, tracing that person's contacts, putting those people under quarantine. Instead, the deadly virus was allowed to spread throughout the city of Wuhan, China. Hid it, even to this present day, are still hiding what they know about the virus. Yet millions of Americans are already to blame President Trump for the virus crisis rather than actual perpetrators. Furthermore, millions of young Americans want to see America become a socialist nation, which often leads to communism. Remember, socialism is nothing more than a fancy word for communism. They think socialism means sharing the fairness to everybody. A recent Gallup poll found that younger you are in America, the higher you view of socialism. Only 51% of Americans aged 18 to 39 had a high view of capitalism, which is what we are, with 49% preferring socialism. At the same time, of those older than 55, 68% were positive toward capitalism, but only 32% in favor of socialism. Gary Bauer of the American Values told me in a recent TV interview, I think all of us have been disturbed by polling data that shows that young Americans particularly seem to be very open, if not outwardly and completely supportive of socialism. Majority of the students that are saying that socialism is good thing are have not been educated in any way, shape, or form about what socialism is. Yeah, you have socialist teachers teaching the younger generation about socialism, okay, the idea of socialism, without telling them the real facts. Mosher noted that the CCP and communists everywhere is built on a series of lies. There is no God. Man is not made in the image of God. Instead, he is just a little higher than the apes. The party can create paradise on earth if you give it all the power. Well, I don't need to go on any more than that. People got figures there. We are losing our capitalism philosophy or government or way of life, let's put it that way, to the socialism or communists, because the colleges in this country are running unchecked about teaching the real.
radicals in the 60s and 70s
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, they're now the
teaching
teachers.
college and
Yeah,
high s- and
yeah. So
school and
when a kid goes to college, he gets exposed to all this thinking. So then when he graduates, he goes down and starts teaching in grade school, and starts teaching that crap to the kids in grade school. And then when they get to college, that generation gets to college, it's reinforced again. So then when they get out, they're thinking that communism is great, but they have not showed them the history of what communism really does. The 50 million Russians that were killed. Nazism, which is a fancy name for communism,
Well,
and
I had a chart, and I can't find it, but this socialism is basically an umbrella, but socialism, communism, fascism, Nazism, Marxism, they're all similar in nature. There's just a few differences on how they're executed.
Yep.
I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about how the plans are executed.
Well, people too.
Now, well, now, Mussolini was a fascist. Okay, Hitler liked fascism, and he took it a step, a slightly different direction, and it is actual socialism or Nazism. Okay, and of course, Karl Marx was a Marxist. Okay, and then communism. They're all very similar, and I wish I could find that explains the exact differences between all of them. And you can use socialism basically as an umbrella if you want to describe all those, but you have to look at what happened to Italy after Mussolini took over. Okay, what happened to the people? You got to look at Germany after Hitler became chancellor. Okay, what went on there? What happened to Russia after the communists took over and got arrested what became the Soviet Union? Okay. What occurred in in China when the communists took over and became Red China? Same with Vietnam, Cambodia, and other places. That is not, those are not the kind of country we want to have. And there's a line from Star Trek, I think it's Spock that says that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Well, that's great on Vulcan, but it's kind of socialistic, okay? And we can't have that as one of our foundations of how to run the country. And right now, with all these stay-at-home orders, all these restrictions, this is a type of socialism. This is our experiment. The people are revolting. I'm glad of it. And I say our Governor Wolf is supposed to come out Monday, I think it is, with how he's going to really explain all this, how he got what code yellow means for a county, and those that are red now, how do they get from red to yellow and yellow to green? But it wouldn't surprise me if there are going to be flare-ups, and our PA Secretary of Health, who's a pediatrician, well, he turned she.
Shim.
He's still he by DNA anyway.
Shim.
We know Pennsylvania has manipulated the death numbers for COVID-19. We've heard the same story coming out of New York and other states. So, are the numbers really that high?
to me, no. I think they're a lot lower. But say later that people being, if you were, if you had a heart condition but had COVID-19 antibodies, and you might have died of a heart attack. Oh no, COVID-19.
Yeah, more and more doctors are coming out questioning
Yes.
the way they were classifying who died from coronavirus, and that if you were hurt in a motorcycle accident and you had coronavirus antibiotics or antibacteria, yeah,
Now this,
them things,
yeah.
why then it was coronavirus that killed you.
Now
Not
this-
the motorcycle, but the coronavirus.
Just from the last week or so, I can exactly what the date was, but Pennsylvania dropped its COVID-19 death toll by over 200 in one day because coroners started complaining, wait a minute, that's not right. And coroners have been left, the county coroner has been left out of a lot of these decisions on how a person died. So I'm getting the impression these numbers have been highly inflated to make some kind of point and drive us to some place we don't really want to go. And have some kind of social. We don't want that. We want adding this near normal crap I keep hearing. I don't want new normal. I don't want to hear new normal. I want back to old normal. Because new normal to me means we're going to accept some form of socialism as part of our normal activities once we come out of this. No. Can't afford to do that. Don't want it. You know, your freedoms have been restricted now. Wait till they keep pushing more and more down our throats.
Well, at that point, we have 3 minutes left. You got anything you want to say?
Yeah, if I'm not enough time in this one story anyway. You're in Pennsylvania again. So you're in a county, if you're going yellow on the 8th of May here, pay attention, find out what that means. If you're still in a red county, find out what it means when you're going to go yellow, what it takes a day. Of course, when you go green, what kind of restrictions are we going to have, even when you go green. I'm here to talk about, we still may have to wear a mask going in stores, which is a bunch of bull crap.
Well, like I said, with not a new one in Crawford County for 9 days, there's no reason why we have to continue to use the mask.
And people are to start saying, no, I'm not wearing a mask. Go ahead and call the cops.
Yeah.
So if I'm not here once, then I might be in jail.
Well,
Not Facebook jail.
yeah. I just clicked this off,
Uh-oh.
but we were down to the end of the wire anyway, so it's picking us back up again. But I'm going to see if I can figure out why all of a sudden I can no longer change the date on our show and that. So anyway, kids, we'll call it quits tonight, and we will see you next week, Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. I don't foresee anything coming up that I can't do, so we will see you then. Thank you for listening and watching. We talk at you later.
Take
Bye.
care.
I wonder if I push